Let's move into our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Tommy Doyle. And Tommy Doyle writes, John, I recently got on Twitter and saw that Madonna has pitched a biopic to Universal and that the pop star is going to direct it herself. What do you think about this news? And do you think this would open the doors for more singers making movies about themselves? All right, thanks a lot for writing that in, man. And yes, it's not just pitched. I believe it's Universal, Rob, has picked it up. Madonna is directing and co-writing with Academy Award-winning screenwriter Diablo Cody, who I love. I love Diablo Cody. She wrote Juno. I believe that's what she won her Academy Award for, was for Juno. So Diablo Cody and Madonna are working on the script. I think they've nailed the script down of a biopic of Madonna, and Madonna herself is going to direct this movie about herself. She's not going to star in it. She's going to go out and find some talent to play in it, and Universal has greenlit it. This comes to us from Deadline, who writes, Universal Pictures has signed on to be the home for a biopic of iconic, I guess you call it autobiopic. It's more than a biopic, an autobiopic of iconic singer Madonna, who will direct her own story from a script she is writing with Oscar-winning Juno scribe Diablo Cody. Madonna will produce the film, so she's writing, directing, and producing the film. Will produce the film with Pascal Pictures, Amy Pascal. Madonna will not act in the film, but she will lead a search for a young actress who will play her in the formative stages of the disruptor's career that set the template for all the diva singers stars who have followed, from Beyonce to Lady Gaga. That comes to us from Deadline. All right. Let me get my first reaction out of the way on this, Rob. My first reaction is, listen, this wouldn't be the first autobiopic we've seen out there where somebody has made a film about themselves. This wouldn't be the first time it happened. I will admit, I cringe a little bit at the idea. Like, even when we've talked before, Rob, about certain biopics that are being done where even the estate of the person who the biopic is about has a little bit too much power. And we think, is this going to skew what the movie is going to be? Will this skew the story? Is it a little bit too much? When you've actually got the subject themselves writing, producing, and directing, and they're in total control of everything that gets said and done in the movie, to me, it makes me call into question the value of the movie. And quite frankly, it makes me not definitively just question the validity of the movie. You know,
right?
It's basically Madonna building a monument to herself. And so there is that part. There's absolutely that part. That said, on the other side of the coin, who else knew what Madonna was really thinking in those years better than Madonna does? Who else really knows the behind the doors conversations that happened better than Madonna does? Who else knows what was really the motivation behind certain things that Madonna did than Madonna does? These can all be skewed, of course, making the movie about herself, but there's those arguments to be made as well. And again, there are some examples of some autobiographical movies being made that have done pretty well. And I'll say this too. This is a biopic. I am not very big on biopics about musicians. I'm just not. I think in the grand scope of the world, they're not that important. As so much as like the person who cured polio or the person who did like whatever. But I will say this. Madonna is such a titan, a Greek god when it comes to the music industry and all that the music industry has become now. One could make the argument that if you really chart the course of the music industry and its interconnection with pop culture and everything, almost very few things were as pivotal and direction setting as the career of Madonna. Every female pop star today, you can draw all the lineage lines back to Madonna. How they were influenced, how they chose to navigate themselves, how they have mimicked the career, projections that Madonna did with her career. You can make the argument there has never been a more important female artist in the world of music history ever. And so while I am uncomfortable as a viewer with the notion, Rob, of a pop star producing, writing, directing, and having full creative control over their own story, while I am uncomfortable with that, it is outweighed to me by this is one that should get made. There are some examples of such things being done before and they work. And there are some arguments about how it could play into the authenticity of the picture that I think all that outweighs my very legitimate concerns about the person being in charge of their own thing. So I'm going to say cautiously, I'm looking forward to it. So I don't know, Rob, you heard about this thing. By the way, we're kind of brushing over the fact that Academy Award-winning screenwriter Diablo Cody is working with her on this. To me, that's huge. That shouldn't be just brushed over. But anyway, Rob, you see the story, you hear the details. What's your reaction to it?
Man, I'm in. For no other reason than this is wacky. This is some crazy shit. I want to see what's going to go down. I want to see what Madonna, how is she going to paint the picture of herself to the world at large? I mean, what's really interesting is you've got to give it up for the Material Girl because, you know, if you think about when she came on the scene and songs like Borderline and Lucky Star, and actually my favorite early Madonna song was Burning Up. I'm burning up because I'm on fire. I can't quench my desire. Don't you know that I'm burning up for your love? But
you call me the song and dance man. Come on.
I know. I'm telling you. But as she moved through her career, whether she was being outrageous, it's starting really with Like a Virgin. Then when she was going through what was it, Erotica, that she was doing that, Justify Your Love, which by the way is still a killer music video. And then the work she did revolutionizing the music video form. The whole album, like that Frozen is off of, is amazing. And like you said, she's probably one of the most important female artists of our time. Well, you know, she was a force for youth in the 80s and 90s. Madonna's like 60.
62 years old.
She's 62. Okay, so she's 62. And I think what better way than to enter a new phase? I mean, she can't sit there and, you know, name her albums after ecstasy anymore, like MDNA. You know, you've got to reinvent yourself. And I think this is a way to reinvent herself in a really strange, kind of wonderful, exciting way. I mean, she knows enough to get a script. If she'd said if they'd written and directed by Madonna, I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. But the fact that I'm working with Diablo Cody, this is some smart stuff. And whether the movie turns out to be great or something like the Concorde Airport 79, which is not good for those of you who are trying to get what I'm trying to say, it's not good. Either way, what we're going to get is something that's going to be interesting, worth following, and certainly a curiosity. And what if it turns out to be really good? Ben Madonna's done it again. You know, reinvented herself for the 2020s, you know, deep into the new century. And it keeps her relevant. I mean, my God, from the 80s to the 2020s and beyond, that's pretty cool. So I'm rooting for the girl. I want to burn up with love for this movie, John.
I want to burn up with love for this movie. You had to work that in there.
I can't quench my desire.
Yeah, and listen, again, I think if there's going to be I honestly can't think of another musician or musical act that would more justify a biopic, even if it's an autobiopic, than Madonna does. I mean, very, very few names. The Beatles, perhaps, a band I don't even like, but they are like God status. What? I know somewhere Scott Mance is screaming at me, but they are God status. They are God status. Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. You know, Madonna's name is right there with that when you really understand the history of the industry. So it's going to be interesting. Question is, guys, what do you think about this? Maybe, you know, despite her importance and all that kind of stuff, maybe that's not enough to outweigh the kind of question marks people are going to have about it with the fact that she's writing and directing and producing herself. I don't know. How do you feel overall about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.